SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary 5, Jaho, Jeff Goodos.
SJ Estongo, Morgan Taylor, Jaho Jifkados.
Did you forget who you were there for a second?
Yeah, I did for just a second.
Oh, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, and our big announcement is, of course, that our program will be changing formats. So today is the last broadcast of Mvskoke Radio on KOKL, the Brew. We will be switching to the digital format, so you can find Mvskoke Radio on YouTube under the same name, same program, etc. Just we're all going digital. So
yeah, I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, quite a change for me. And Morgan and I were just chatting about my old days when I really worked on Fred Flintstone equipment there in a little dinky station in Minneapolis. But we're moving along. Things are changing. Computers taking over everything, including this program almost. It will remain the same. We will be producing and sharing the same kind of materials, but you'll have to find us on YouTube. So hopefully we'll make sure that you're aware of any changes or where we can be found on that dial.
And I think we're going to continue the same time, same block. Yeah.
Yes, it seems like we were well entrenched on a Wednesday morning here at 10 a.m. It gives me a little time to wake up and have my second cup of coffee. So.
Right before nap time, though.
You got it right, which I've done before, a little cat nap in the office. But in the meantime, let's get to what we have today. We're going to be sharing a wonderful piece by our good buddy Jared Moore from his program, his Mvskoke Vision. And I just forgot the name of his program.
Livewire.
Thank you.
The Livewire.
I am getting old, folks. I want to thank Morgan for doing the show last week when I took the week off to turn older, so I'm just now enjoying 73. So.
Hey, it's the new 37.
Yeah, people keep asking, when are you going to retire? I said, well, I'm getting a darn sight closer to it, so hang on there. Anyway, let's get on with our program. This is Jared talked to a Kiowa filmmaker, Jeffrey Palmer, about his piece called Ghosts, which should be available to the public before too long, and we'll find out what that's all about. In the second half of the program, we're going to just kind of relax a bit and reminisce about putting this program out on broadcast here on KOKL, the Brew, and some of the fun, some of the surprises, some of the horrifying situations we kind of fumbled our way through. So anyway, enough of that. Let's get on with our program here.
And I am your host, Jared Moore, and this is Livewire, the program where we take your questions from the chat. We've already got some questions piling up there in the chat, thanks to TY Pro. We're going to get to them. But first, let me introduce our guests. Tonight, we have Jeff Palmer. He is a Kiowa filmmaker, and he is also an associate professor at the Department of Performing and Media Arts for Cornell University. So, Mr. Palmer, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So, I want to tell the guys in the audience how I came across your short film Ghosts. We went to the Circle Cinema premiere for the documentary Bad Press, and it was shown as a short film before the main film started. So tell me about Ghosts and what is it about and how did it happen?
Yeah, so I've been wanting to make this film for quite a long time. I'm typically known as a documentary filmmaker. So even though I've made fiction films before in the past, a lot of those films have been unscripted, and they kind of are sort of a hybrid mix between fiction and doc. And this was like the first time that I've ever sat down and worked with a screenwriter, and we fashioned out a story that was based on a true story of these three Kiowa boys that escaped a boarding school in Anadarko, Oklahoma. And I had heard this story when I was younger. You know, my dad told this story to me when I was a child, and so it's always sat in the back of my mind as something that I wanted to explore as a story, and it's happened in different iterations. You know, I think Scott Momaday wrote a story called The Indolent Boys. There was actually a play based on this story. So, and I've done my last documentary, feature documentary that I did was on Scott Momaday. So we had talked about it in the process of making that film. So I finally got the opportunity, and I guess it was it's been a couple of summers, summer of 22, that we developed a crew and started casting. And before you know it, there we were, in Oklahoma, filming it. So it happened all really, really fast. And we were really fortunate to be able to make the film.
And this film, and if you guys want to check out the trailer to the film, there's a link in the descriptions video, and there's also a link to where you can watch Words from a Bear, the Mr. Momaday, the documentary about him on Amazon Prime. If you want to check that out, we're going to talk about that a little bit later too. But this film features the Kiowa language like heavily. What was the screenwriting process like for those two things?
Yeah. So my screenwriting partner for this film was my colleague here at Cornell, Austin Bunn. He's written a lot of scripts for Hollywood, for television and for feature films. And so when we were working together, I think that we, in the very beginning, wanted to kind of create a story that sort of reached everybody. We wanted to open, the doors to a wider audience of people that could find something within the narrative arc of this particular story. And we were also making a short film. It's not a feature film, so we didn't have a lot of time, and so we considered a lot of angles, of what we would focus on, and the escape of from the boarding school seemed to be the best thing dramatically. And when we finished the film, there were a couple of things that happened. So part of it was that I knew Kiowa was going to be in the film. Most of my films have indigenous language, if not all of them, I think. And a good portion of them have Kiowa. So I knew Kiowa was always going to be in the film. So we were working together, at first in English, and then I knew I was going to translate what I wanted to into Kiowa from English for certain parts. Once the film was completed, I realized that the film had to have some type of almost like expository entrance. I felt like there needed to be more that needed to be said. We just couldn't just drop you into this film. It had to say more. So we begin the film with a Kiowa elder, basically telling you the story as if they were telling you this story during the wintertime, at night. And so we enter with that, and I put in subtitles, instead of having the dominant subtitle be English, the dominant subtitle is all in Kiowa. So
Yeah.
it's got the Kiowa language written, and it's got the English subtitle underneath. We did that purposely. And then by the end of the film, it kind of ends that way, with leaving you with a hanger, which is that, we don't know exactly what happened to these boys, but that story's for another time, and we'll talk about it later.
Right. Right. So, is there plans to continue this short film into a feature, or what's the idea there?
Yeah, we've finished the feature script, and so we've sent it to several producers, and I mean, the way that Hollywood works is it's always, you can get a lot of feedback, but there's a lot of, I think, gates to go through in terms of people wanting to fund a film like this, because it is a period piece, and it would probably be extremely expensive, I think, to make. So that's one of the first critiques that we got about the film, is like how to pull back on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're constantly like in revision mode of like how to tell this story, and what we could do differently. And then the other avenue that we're thinking about is just, maybe it comes out as a graphic novel. We have the script, and we were thinking of maybe fashioning it to work in that particular medium. So there's definitely an extension of this that's going to happen. It depends on who bites first, I think, in terms of that whole journey for it. But the short has had a great journey, for the last year. It's been, doing quite well. And actually, this coming weekend is going to be in Paris, and at a film festival there, a historical fiction film festival. So we're thrilled with the journey it's been on and where it will go at some point.
Absolutely. We've got some questions piled up here. I'm going to try to go through them as quick as I can, so we can, because I also wanted to talk about Words from a Bear. T.Y. Pearl asks, are the parallels between publicly funded sectarian boarding schools and recent horrific adoption of a Catholic public charter school in Oklahomistan something you'd consider exploring in the future? I think he's talking about Oklahoma, Oklahomistan. But is that something you might look at for a sequel or something?
I didn't quite get the question. What
well, I think what he's asking is, we had the boarding school period, right?
Correct.
And there's been things now with charter schools and the curriculum of Oklahoma schools that kind of, we see some certain things, history repeating itself. Is that something that you might consider as a project in the future?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that, I'm always critiquing Oklahoma for sure, because I've grown up there, and I live in New York now, but it's something that I consistently try to do, is to think about, not only the untold stories in Oklahoma, but critiquing it pretty hard in terms of the things that have not been done well in the state. And so whether that would be a documentary or a fiction piece, sure, it's of interest to me, certainly.
All right. Let's see what's the next one. T.Y. Pearl asks, ever consider making a film about the time John Trudell and AIM occupied the offices of Overton James in Oklahomistan to stop Indian Ed program corruption?
I don't know the story. I mean, I know a lot about John Trudell, but I don't know that particular story. So that's an untold story I'd like to dig into
All right.
more.
There you
for
go.
Sure.
You're getting free ideas from our chat today. I myself also, I'm not familiar with that event, but you have to dig it out. T.Y. Pearl says, nice seeing Lane Factor. I see Sonny in him. How did he get cast? Sonny Sampson, that is.
So we had a pretty amazing casting call that went out, early in the summer of 2022, and I was actually in Seoul, Korea, when we opened up the casting call. And there's always something that you kind of think in your mind that nobody really cares about the work they can do,
right.
As an artist. You never know who's going to show up, and we immediately started getting inquiries from so many different people, across the state, that were interested in this film and wanted to be a part of it. And really, my dream for the character that I wanted to cast for this film was Lane Factor. I felt like Lane Factor was Charles, and obviously I've been watching Reservation Dogs, as everybody else has been doing, and so I called Lane and talked to his agent, talked to him. He's wonderful. And before I knew it, he was in the film. And once he was in the film, then the floodgates just basically opened and everybody started coming in from all over. So it was really that kind of domino effect to get everybody in the film.
Oh, T.Y. Pearl saying the AIM story is on the Oklahoma Historical Society website. So that's somewhere we could go to check it out.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if this is okay. If there were a juried native film festival held in conjunction with the Mvskoke art market, would you consider making a submission?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing about this film is it took an interesting journey. Like it's been at a lot of indigenous film festivals around the world, and I think that's kind of I think every film has its own, like endurance test that it goes on. And some films go through Sundance and they kind of take that route, and I think this film had a different trajectory than some of my other films, and it's definitely like, has hit a lot of indigenous film festivals, and yeah, any indigenous film festival in Oklahoma would be fantastic. We screened this at FAM back in May, and then like it's sold out 5 times in a row. So
wow.
I think like Oklahoma is like the place for it, obviously. So yeah, absolutely.
All right. Before we go on and start talking about words from the bear, do you want to give a shout out to like any of your family?
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio.
Kiowa language
Join us again
programming?
next week for more local, tribal,
your dad
and
involved with that? Is that right?
Yeah, my dad's been a Kiowa linguist for many, many years, taught at the University of Oklahoma, and it started the native language program there
now, and
the
they're making it
anthropology
easier than
department.
ever.
I think it's in the
Apply by
native studies
October.
department now, but at that time it was in the anthropology department. And yeah, just it started out with just a couple of languages and then just really grew over that many years to include, I don't know how many indigenous languages are there now, but quite a few. And so, and then of course he does work, with the Kiowa, native language program in Carnegie. I know it's stretched out into many different areas, and there's many different people that teach it now. And I think it's great. I mean, it's good to hear the language in other places, and that we're still trying to fight to keep it alive because there aren't a lot of fluent speakers, and we have to continue to try to immerse ourselves some way. And so I guess that's part of my job, as a filmmaker is to make sure that the language is there so that we continue to teach our young folks, what that means. So,
absolutely. So, let's talk about Words from a Bear.
Sure.
For somebody who doesn't know anything about the documentary, kind of give us an idea of what it's about, and then how did it start? What was the genesis of that project?
Okay. So the film is about the Kiowa writer Scott Momaday, who wrote the Pulitzer Prize winning novel, Housemaid of Dawn. I almost forgot that. That he was the first to win the Pulitzer. There's been people that have won the Pulitzer now. At the time that we made the film, he was the first and only. But since then, there have been, thank God, more people, indigenous folks, that have won the Pulitzer. He wrote that book in 1968 and won the Pulitzer in '69. And yeah, it's a story about his life. He has this amazing life, and how it started. So let me turn my camera off and turn it back on again here. Okay. Sometimes I slow down. I can see myself slowing down. So I had a film at the Sundance Film Festival called Isabel's Garden back in 2015. and it's a Choctaw film. It's about this Choctaw girl who has a garden. Basically, it's a very simple film premise, and we took it to Sundance and won an award. And I was introduced to a couple of people there that were working with American Masters at the time. One of them was the executive producer, Michael Cantor, and the other one was Shirley Sneevy, who was working with Vision Maker Media. I think it was called Vision Maker Media at that time. And they both had earlier met together. I mean, these are the things that happen at Sundance. You know, when you're a filmmaker, you don't realize like these meetings are going on, you know, behind your back. And they were talking and saying, you know, well, who's the next person that needs to be on American Masters? Like, we need an indigenous person, you know. And they've always needed that. You know, it's been on air for however many years, decades, and they haven't had very many subjects. So they were having that conversation, and they decided that Scott Momaday should be the person. And then they kind of put two and two together with me being there as a potential person to actually direct that film. And so a few months later, Michael Cantor gave me a call from American Masters and said, "Do you want to do this?" And I thought he was kidding. You know, I was like, you know, and it is one of those things where it's like, are you serious? And he said, no, write it up. Write up what you want to do. Throw everything in there. Throw everything in the budget that you want. And we'll get back to you and tell you if this is like, you know, something that looks promising to us. So I did my first like real proposal, you know, for that film. And I didn't know what I was getting into. You know, it's like, you kind of get into those situations and you run with them. And I didn't know it was going to be on national television, or that, you know, the money that was involved in it and all of these different things that, you know, because I was making films for nothing. You know?
Right.
So once we got to that point where reality kind of smacked me in the face, I was like, oh my God, like this is the real deal. Like, I've got to really, you know, be a filmmaker.
Right.
And I've got to tell this man's story who I have so much respect and reverence for. And so if there was any film that was made for me, you know, for me to do at that moment in my career, you know, it was that film. And so it really, the stars aligned. And before I knew it, I was in Scott Momaday's living room talking with him about what he wanted to do. And it just blew up from there. It was a 3-year journey. There were a lot of ups and downs. And I learned a hell of a lot on that film. And it ended up premiering at the Sundance Film Festival in 2019. And just when it went on a journey that I can't believe still, you know, and it kind of changed my life. And I think it changed Scott's life. And so, and we became really, really close friends, you know, after the making of that film. But I think if you watch that film and you watch other American Masters films, it's very, very different from anything American Masters has ever done.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted. You know, I wanted to sort of push against the boundaries of that very sort of conservative series. And I think we did that, and in a lot of ways changed the direction maybe of where American Masters is today. So it was a great project and really, really fun to work on. Great. And it was nominated for an Emmy. So for that season, and won a lot of awards. And it's one of those films that you dream about getting, you know, in your lifetime, and they don't come along very much. So I was really fortunate to get that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to remind you guys too The link to that on Amazon Prime is in the description of this video, so if you want to check it out, go there. And then, is it still in circulation on PBS? Is this something where somebody might catch it on PBS somewhere? Do you know?
I think that they do repeats. If you go to American Masters on PBS website, you can find it, and there's excerpts on American Masters website for it. They have a lot of sort of interactive stuff that they've placed with the film on their website, and every once in a while it pops up in one of the regions, especially in November, during Native American Heritage Month.
Yeah.
And so it's still out there. It's still doing its thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Very happy about.
So we had a couple of questions here pop up. T.Y. Pearl asks, ever read Jubilee City by Joe Ando? No. So he's asking, have you ever considered an adaptation of that? I haven't read that either, T.Y. Pearl, so send me a link or something. I'll check it out. I want to thank you for being on the program today. It's been great. What's next for Jeff Palmer?
Well, I just got tenure here at Cornell, which is like a big deal at any institution, but especially at an Ivy League school.
So you're not an associate professor anymore. You're the full deal.
No, I went from assistant to associate.
Oh, okay.
So now I am an associate.
All right.
Which is good.
I'm just going to correct what I said if I said something wrong at the start.
No. Yeah, I mean, the next step is being a full. But I'm taking the next 5 to 6 years and working on a multitude of projects. Certainly Ghosts is one project that feels like it's going to go somewhere, but I have other projects in the mix with documentaries and also just trying to get my life settled here in Ithaca and do good work at Cornell, teaching my students, and I come back to Oklahoma occasionally. Like I'm teaching at Quartz Mountain this coming summer. I was a guest artist last summer, and this summer I'm actually going to teach. So I'm excited about all the things that are coming up in the future, and things have been really, really good. So I'm happy.
That ties into another question we have pop up here. Ben Belcher asks, does Mr. Palmer do any speaking engagements in which he talks to young, inspiring filmmakers?
All the time. Yeah. I mean, that's the work I do. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying. I mean, they're college students most of the time that I'm talking to. And I've worked at several institutions, besides Cornell, including UCO, in Oklahoma. That was where I got my start. And but now I working with Quartz Mountain, it's interesting to work with aspiring high school students. But I would love to work with young indigenous students and like high school students, middle school students, to get them involved in media and get them involved in film. And sure, I do those types of speaking engagements when I can. And I don't do it as often as I probably should. So I would love to get back to Oklahoma and do those more.
We have Meredith Johnson here says, hi, Jeff. And for you guys out there, Meredith is also my wife. That's kind of the behind the scenes inside baseball is she had Jeff's contact information. So that's how I was able to contact him to ask him to come on the show. So more information than you guys deserve or need. T.Y. Pearl asks, ever consider a film about Carrie Dickerson, the Sun Belt Alliance, and the Black Fox nuclear power plant protest that many Indians, including Wes Studi, participated in?
No, but I need this person.
Yeah, yeah. You want me to? Yeah, like T.Y. Pearl, you need to email me, and then I'll email you Jeff's contact information,
yes.
And you can give him all of this stuff, and he will start pumping those films out one after another, blockbusters. So,
yeah,
because T.Y. Pearl is one of my regular guests. He's a great person. I don't know if he, she, or whatever. We never did get your pronouns there, T.Y. Pearl, so if you want to pop them into the chat. I don't know if I saw that last time because I was asking you about that. So, contains multitudes. Absolutely. Yes, that's a good reference drop, T.Y. So we're getting close to the end of the program here. Is there anything that maybe about either ghosts or words from a bear that you think is important to mention that we didn't talk about?
I think that both of the films are important in the sense that they're really a part of this. I don't really like to call it a resurgence, but it really is this moment. I think for Native filmmakers, that has sort of opened up in the larger spectrum of national television or things that are going on to networks and streaming services and things like that. And it really is this renaissance. And I think Scorsese's film that's coming out, which is a historical adaptation, is even though it isn't a Native person that did the film, it's about our people, and I think that he spent a lot of time working to make it a part of that. But there's also Erica Tremblay's film, Fancy Dance, and the things that Sterling's doing. I can go on and on and on of people that I've been around for many, many years now that we've just been beating the bushes, and finally things are starting to move. And so I'm just happy to be a part of that group of people, and that my films can hopefully be in the same space as all of those, as part of this resurgence that I hope to continues, and we continue to make good work. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll agree with all of that 100%. Anything you have going on in the future, sir, feel free, shoot me an email. We'll have you back on to talk about it and check it out. I just want to tell you my opinion. I think Ghosts is a great short. I thought the costumes were great. How the language was handled in the film, to me, really struck a chord with me because of how just we were talking about the Kiowa language was given the prominence and the English was pushed down. And there was even stuff that was subtitled that you probably could have got away with not subtitling. You were subtitling the English in addition to the Kiowa and stuff. So that was a great touch that I thought was put in there, that was kind of like a subtle thing that wouldn't have happened if you didn't have an indigenous filmmaker making the film, in my opinion. So, and then I myself have not seen the Words from a Bear yet, but I'm going to check it out for sure. And all the best in the future, sir.
Thank you. One more thing I want to say too
Sure.
is Bad Press is an amazing film, and again, a part of this group of films that are doing great things. So congratulations on that, and I was happy to be a part of that screening. So let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in today. We're right at 30 minutes almost exactly, so we're right on the scheduled time.
We weren't actually on scheduled time there, but it's 10:33. We're going to forego our usual break here. We have joining me in the studio as our play-by-play announcers for Cricket on the Wall last week. We want to welcome Braden Harper and, of course, Morgan Taylor into the show. We're going to take the last portion of our program. As you have hopefully heard, we will be changing our venue. This is the last program you will hear here on KOKL, The Brew. We will be switching to the digital format and doing a podcast available on YouTube. Big change for us, of course, and we hope that many of you listeners can stay with us. First of all, maybe we'll take a second. Braden, you can explain what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, Gary, thank you so much for having us here on the program. I'm sure a lot of our listeners out there are very curious as to why we are shifting our Mvskoke radio program from KOKL to online on the internet. Essentially, as technology evolves, so do the media platforms. They evolve along with it, and we at Mvskoke Media just want to make sure that we are reaching as many people as we can, and we also want to make sure, as far as citizens that tune into our programming, we want to make sure that their needs are being best met by being accessible. So we think that this move will certainly be more accessible rather than have people have a predestined time every week. You have been so loyal, to this program, making sure that it runs 10 a.m. Wednesday morning on KOKL, and we are just so thankful for that. But now that we are shifting this program to YouTube, people will be able to listen to it, and they'll be able to hopefully it'll be more accessible is basically what I'm trying to say. We're very thankful to KOKL for hosting us for many years, and Gary, of course, we are very thankful for all the programming that you've done here. You probably are. Not only do you have the most radio experience out of any indigenous person in this nation, but also I think just in general, you probably stand on the toes of having the most experience out of anyone in the industry. So congratulations, Gary, and we're excited about the changes that are yet to come.
Well, thank you. I'm sure Peggy Berryhill would love to hear that part. She is, of course, a Creek producer and has been in radio for a long time. Actually owns a station out in California, but that doesn't do us a lot of good here. But, this is not the end of Mvskoke Radio. We are just switching means of accessing us. And it's been, I guess, a privilege and an honor, and certainly a lot of work in getting this program out every week. Our aim in Mvskoke Radio, of course, is to get the material out that people need to know. People are going to be interested in a variety of subjects, and so we've tried to place that variety out there and make it accessible. There are a lot of things that Native people need to know. Of course, changes perhaps, say, in the Indian Child Welfare Act or education funding and things like that. And then an important part is an entertainment value, things that people just would like to know, whether it's our poet laureate emeritus Joy Harper, or
Joy Harjo?
Harjo. Thank you. Excuse me, Joy. Forgive me for that one. Joy Harjo. And let's hope there is no Joy Harper that we have to run into. Winnie Cooper, who was in studio and sharing her music, and then we've had poets and people like Carmen Bruner, who had come in and shared her music, and then other folks who have talked about being a boxer in the ring, things like that, rodeo riders and things like that, Women's Honor Guard, our language programmers.
Housing.
Yes.
Chiefs.
Yes.
You name it.
If you're like me, you may wonder what the difference is between banks and credit.
Oh boy, these computers driving me nuts here today. Anyway, I'm glad you mentioned the chief, and we've had the council leadership in here to talk about the most current events going on involving our tribe and how it interacts or doesn't interact with federal, state, and local governments. So, that's been my pride and certainly my challenge in getting a show on the week getting it there time after time.
Gary, what would you say is the most memorable show that you've ever produced here on KOKL?
Oh boy, that would be several come to mind. Some of them were a lot of fun and really a joy to do. Others were complete disasters. Like plane crash that you can walk away from is a good show. And we've had all kinds of challenges, like guests not showing after they had confirmed, or we even had a gentleman who had a heart attack once. And we had to cover that program while the ambulance crew came in and
On the show.
Yeah, and transported him to medical care. And I mentioned Joy Harjo. She's a wonderful person to chat with, and all of her accomplishments. But she gave me one of the most challenging things. She was scheduled for the program, but running late, and so I said, "Well, let's go to Plan B. I'll call you on your cell phone." And so she was doing the interview with her as she was driving down 75 to get here. And so she finally showed up about, let's say about 10 minutes after the show had begun. And I saw her outside the window get out of her car. She was still on the phone talking with me, and came in the door and put down her phone and jumped on the mic. And it's like she made that instantaneous change there. I said, okay, well, there's a new one for me. That one never happened. Those are the ones that come to mind, quickly. But then we've had fun doing interesting things. Way back when Gerald Wofford was here, we did an interview with him while he was on the steps of the Pentagon. We talked to the first women's honor guard troop that I know of, or knew of then, as they were actually marching in a Veterans Day parade in New York City on Veterans Day. We talked to their commander. She was on her little Bluetooth earpiece, and we just did the interview as they were marching down the street. So I think I was proud of that one, and no one else had ever even attempted something as crazy as that. So those are the ones that come to mind. And then, of course, we were always proud to get big chunk of the chief's time, whoever the chief might have been at the time, and we're able to connect him with the tribe right on the bat. He took some questions and talked with our listeners and provided some up-to-date kind of things. Usually the principal chief has been very good in working with us, but I remember, I have to say this, there was one time when a principal chief came in and interrupted a program. He just walked in and sat down and talked about something else. And that kind of ticked me off, but we let it go. There wasn't much we could do, get fired on the air. And so those are kind of some of the highlights and lowlights that we ran across. Of course, COVID and winter storms and things like that. But we managed to get in here and usually get a program on the air. So I was kind of proud of that whole body of work, I think.
What do you think you're going to miss most about doing the show here at the radio station?
Well, broadcast has its own special entity, I think. People, I was driving home and I heard you on the radio, with digital. Most people won't be able to do that who have done that in the past. Or I was, ironing clothes and listening to you and this kind of thing. So if they are not tuned into YouTube on the computer, they will find it hard to keep up with us. However, in saying that, those programs will be archived, and so they can hear a program, but just not maybe on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. So as all of our shows are, we are archived on the Mvskoke Radio website there on YouTube, so you can listen or go back into our library. But, it's that live element that I think probably we'll miss. It's been a disaster and it's kicked our tails a few times, but still there's, fun in meeting that challenge.
I know there's some people that have to tune in, via the KOKL website, so it'll be kind of the same thing for them, since they don't get the radio show because it's a local show. So that won't be any different for them. It'll just be on our page, our YouTube. But I would like to say shout out to my Mvskoke people and my boyfriend's mom, Tina, for listening, and his family in Okima and my family. Every Wednesday they listen. They are loyal to our program, and I am going to, if they can't, I'll help them try to stay loyal.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to be having some of those natives be like, well, now I need a internet program tribe to pay for my internet now so I can listen to Mvskoke radio.
Well, you know, when you mention something like that, this program will be available to people across the nation.
Right.
And
yeah.
so,
Further
yeah,
reaching.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of cool if we can do some promotion there. Say, hey, remember Gary Fife who used to do National Native News? Well, he's back. He hasn't been too far away, but you can catch him on YouTube now.
Right, because you used to broadcast nationally.
Oh yeah. I built that show. I'm kind of glad to say it's still around and serving its purpose. We were initially National Native News was on National Public Radio, and then for some strange reason changed to American Public Radio, and was still carried to all of our listeners that way. And I'm kind of proud to say that I think I might have been the first Native newscaster to do a program live on the NPR satellite system. I mean, after a while we had pre-recorded it, but as things got a little easier and material started flowing in on a more regular basis, we could do that, and we tried to experiment.
You probably got some fans that have been wondering where you're at.
Yeah,
we'll
I have
to do
a few.
Where's Gary now? Piece.
He's got to be retired somewhere. No, he's too crazy to retire yet, but it's not in the too distant future there. But that was, so many years ago, and was delighted to get the opportunity to come home and work for my own tribe and do the things that I really enjoy, and actually kind of loved to do.
How long have you been here now?
I've been 11 years now, I believe. Last year I got my 10-year employee trophy, so.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I'm kind of glad that that's at least one milestone I can use as a reminder of how long I have been. But I'm not quitting yet, not just yet, folks, so I'll still be around for a little bit, and hopefully get to train a replacement at some time to see what happens. But, it's always been fun, I think, to be able to broadcast live and share this kind of stuff.
It is fun. It's been one of my favorite parts of the job.
Yes,
Yeah.
now we brought you in as an associate producer to cover my backside when I was sick or had to take a vacation like I did last week.
Or on your birthday, yeah.
Yes, and so it's nice to know that there are other people, including Braden Harper, that could actually fill in if you had to. So it's kind of passing the torch sort of stuff. Now,
It's fun to do, too, kind of.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What was the most fun for you when you were doing this?
I think, I don't know, I like to, listen to the levels and kind of, I'm one of those people that I like to do multiple things at once anyways, even though it doesn't always work out for me. But doing this is one of those things that you learn to make it work, But it's kind of fun to be able to, use all your senses, I guess. You got, because you touch everything and you got to hear and talk and manage all that at once. And
Sort of
it's
like a drummer. It's like you got a
Yeah.
hi-hat and then your crash over here and then your snare drum.
Yeah, I think all that is really kind of a fun thing for me, being kind of having that kind of brain kinetic,
Well, what she's talking about, folks, is as she mentioned levels, we've got this little meter here with needles that bounce up and down, and you've got to make sure that they stay in the right areas and not get into the red.
Yeah.
And we've had people do that. I remember one chief who used to shave with a microphone and never understood what he was saying. But while we're doing that, we're watching time, and then I'm doing a recording here with watching the levels there and trying to make sure that the sound is good. Like our guests are speaking up so they can be heard, things like that. it's a challenge because you've got to put your mind in so many places and be able to switch very quickly.
And remember, and you have to, try to listen to your person and then ask questions and at the right time. And so, yeah, like for my ADHD brain, it's fun. It's a little fun exercise for an hour,
No, well, I'm glad. Well, Braden, you've been a managing editor for how long now? Is it?
5-6 months.
Yeah. So you're still breaking in. So, what's your opinion of what the program has put out, content-wise?
Content-wise, I'm very proud of everything that I think Mvskoke Radio's produced. Gary, you were just certainly fearless in terms of getting whomever on the horn, whether it's Genter Drummond or whether it's a chief or
getting knocked down by Paul Tay.
Yeah. But I mean, it's incredible. Whenever you put your mind to something, you say, you bring it up in our editorial meetings. I'm going to get Stenjati, or I'm going to get Wes Studi up here in the studio. I apologize. I don't know if we've ever had a Wes Studi interview.
Yes, we actually not in the studio, but we've done interviews with him.
Yes. But like to someone like me, that's something something I really strive toward as a journalist, to just be fearless and reach out to important people, whether they're leaders, performers, or policymakers, doctors, whomever. You don't care about that, and you just want to talk to them. You want to get them here and produce or provide information that people can use, and particularly, indigenous people. And I think that's just an incredible gift that you've brought to here. But the programming here, I mean, as you said, time and time again, is that you always try to make sure it's well balanced. We have serious topics like, like Suicide Prevention Month, but at the same time, we also try to have some fun, from time to time with, live performers in the studio. That's always a treat, whether it's gospel singers or hip hop artists. You're just, indiscriminate to what we can produce here. And truthfully, it's really been a gift to be able to shadow you and learn the ropes on how to do the audio board, and also just how to put together a program of important people like I just said. It's and also it's just truly a gift to learn from someone who's been doing this for a very long time. So your expertise is invaluable, Gary, and I know that the Mvskoke Nation has certainly benefited greatly from this program.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, that was sweet, Braden.
Thank you.
I try.
I think one word that maybe you might want to add to that description is desperation. Sometimes like, oh my God, they canceled on me. How am I going to fill this hour with whatever else? And so you have to get real creative sometimes with some of the subjects you come up with.
Comfortable, yeah.
It might be kind of dull or boring generally, but you have to figure out what is the conversational point here. What can we do about this particular subject to make it listenable?
Definitely, though, one thing that I've learned from Gary is just you have to get that fear out of the way, or that thing that's keeping you from asking people the questions or talking. That's a huge part of this job, I think, and especially live. Sometimes you know that you have a question to ask and you need to ask it, and it's kind of intimidating sometimes because that person might not appreciate you at that moment once you ask that question, but sometimes you just have to get out there. That's what people want to know.
Well, I guess I have had a guest or two snarl at me, but this is the kind of thing, as you say, people really want to know and need to know in many cases, and sometimes I think our listeners kind of enjoy that little altercation on the airwaves occasionally, but you try not to push it too far.
Right. Yeah.
To get the essence of what you need out of there, and not get caught up in an argument or something like that. And sometimes you have to, really take charge and perhaps cut somebody off mid response, and saying, well, I'm not going to let you run on for 10 minutes on this. Wait a minute now. Or if there's a subject there that's really emotional and people are getting wound up, you have to figure out, okay, well, I'm gonna cut them off here and change the subject. That's because the rest of this discussion is going to be an argument, and it's not going to do anybody any good. And I guarantee you, it will not be changing minds. So, like, if we were going to talk guns, people, really get hot on one side and then hot on the other. And yeah, we've heard it all before. Okay, made your point. Okay, let's move on. Or, things like that. And you have to remain in charge in many cases. There have been times or two when I wish I hadn't booked someone and probably had to shut down somebody's ego. And they just liked hearing themselves on the radio. But I said, well, I've only got an hour to work with, so we've got...
Yeah, I've run into that too.
Sure. Or I've got an hour to work with. How do I fill it?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the strengths of our discussions have been the hows and the whys. The other stuff, I call the mechanical, the logistical, who, when, where kind of stuff is good. Like, well, we're going to have this big presentation, this concert going on in the Dome. It's on, Wednesday, February the 34th. And at 11 o'clock, people don't care, right? If you want to go, then good, but they perhaps want to know what the subject matter is and why do people do this kind of thing, and that's always been the heart and soul of most of our discussions, I think.
Well, and not only have you done good work in the studio, you've also done a lot of work in the field, like doing those live remotes at festival.
Well, those were fun. We did it didn't go over as big as I'd wanted to, but the fact that we were out there and among the festival goers and people could see, these are the folks who do that, or grab someone from the crowd or a vendor or some of our royalty and bring them in and do a discussion then. That's always nice. And then the fun part of radio is the production when you go out on a story and take your recorder and a microphone or two and go out and do something like Native American Day in Tulsa. Or the most fun I had was the Civil War reenactment at Honey Springs. And there was a Creek presence there, so I did my job about talking with those folks, and then had fun, recording the rifles going off and cannon and horses neighing and the cavalry charges. That was the fun part, and then mixing it all together. So I tried to get it out of the studio and not make this show just talking heads all the time, and that's the fun part of bringing in a musician. First time we had Winnie Cooper in, she just blew me away. I mean, holy cow, this girl is magnificent. So, we could do a whole show about her, but no. But it was the music then, or the gospel choir people, and playing their recordings. That really makes radio effective. And they call it creating an audio portrait. You put your listeners right there. And that's what we tried to do many times when we did those special features.
I feel like we kind of see a lot of this transition, though. A lot of people are doing podcasts and things like that. What's your opinion on that, Gary?
Well, it's, I grew up in an age where there were no computers, no cell phones, no anything, so it's intimidating.
Yeah.
It's like I really haven't had much experience in the computerized world that way, but okay, this is the way the world's going. Let's give it a shot and see what we can do and adapt what we can to make that show work.
Yeah.
Too.
Do you feel like there's a lot of competition?
Oh yeah. There are all kinds of people doing shows out of their living rooms or their
Bedroom
garages,
studios, yeah.
and their basements and things like that. Which is fine, and hopefully ours will stand out as being a quality production that covers material that people can really use. Well, we're pretty much out of time here. We had some announcements, but I don't think we're going to be able to get to them. Let me fire one off here. Got Guts, Crick Nation Complex Blood Drive, Tuesday, October 10th, 10 to 3 at the Blood Mobile at the campus.
Yeah, and Loop Square Meat Company sells quality beef raised and processed right here on the Mvskoke Reservation. They're open from 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday.
And check with your local JOM. They have programs, the academic incentive. The deadline is March 8th, so stay in touch with those people. And
Okay.
thank you to our listeners, and stay tuned for more Mvskoke Radio updates on our
Right.
YouTube.
Now, we will be promoting this in the paper, hopefully, and on Mvskoke Vision. We are not going away. We're just kind of changing cars here. You can find us on the Mvskoke media websites. And please, hopefully, you will be checking in with us. So, Mado.
Mado.
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.